This is the second video now in a series of videos that I'm doing on Doug Batchelor of Amazing Facts and Seventh-day Adventist, who has a series of videos up himself called 1844, 2,300 Days Prophecy, Investigative Judgment. And in this series, he's trying his best to make people believe in investigative judgment. When I've pointed out before that 1844 was supposed to be the end of the world, according to the pioneers of the Seventh-day Adventist. So anything they've created from there is nothing more than an invention of the Seventh-day Adventist. And if they'd ever gotten Daniel 8:14 right to start with, all of this never would have came about. But anyway, I want to go back and talk to you a minute about a Seventh-day Adventist by the name of Dario. He goes by the name of Dario 2096 on YouTube. Many of you probably know that I challenged him as well as other Seventh-day Adventists to a debate, and Dario wouldn't debate me on this topic. We had an opportunity to clear it up, but he wouldn't debate me on it. But yet he wants to run a series of videos in behind mine saying I'm wrong. And well, Dario, you know, I was dealing with the daily sacrifice in Daniel chapter 8, and you came out with a video then that said the word sacrifice isn't in the Hebrew, and you're right about that. It's not. In fact, you said that the daily, and I'll show you an image of a screenshot I took from his video. Dario, you said the daily was paganism, that the pioneers of the Seventh-day Adventist Church took it to be paganism, and that the word sacrifice wasn't there at all, but they took the daily to be paganism. Well, I think you and Doug Batchelor need to exchange phone numbers and get your inventions right. If you'll go look at his video series, you'll find out that Doug Batchelor uses the word daily sacrifice. In fact, he makes a statement in his video, what was the daily sacrifice to the Jewish people? So apparently it must have been a daily sacrifice. So if Doug Batchelor is wrong and there was no daily sacrifice, then he's totally wrong in his entire series of videos to start with, since there was no daily sacrifice. So what you've done, Dario, is help me to prove Doug Batchelor wrong, because according to you, the early pioneers saw the daily sacrifice or the daily as paganism. So if the word sacrifice isn't there, and Doug Batchelor's over here in his video saying, yes, here's what the daily sacrifice is, then you've helped prove that Doug Batchelor doesn't have any idea what he's talking about. But let me go ahead and point out to the viewer, though, just exactly what Doug Batchelor calls the daily sacrifice. Believe it or not, he said that the daily sacrifice represented the gospel. You heard me right. He said that the daily sacrifice that Dario says doesn't exist and is paganism is the gospel. So do we have the Seventh-day Adventists now calling the gospel pagan? Well, maybe, maybe not. But Doug Batchelor insists that there is a daily sacrifice in Daniel chapter 8, and that this daily sacrifice is the gospel. He says, what is the daily sacrifice to the Jewish people? That's what Doug Batchelor says. And then to his audience he says the daily sacrifice is the gospel. Let me think here. If this was around 538 or so when this was written, and the gospel didn't come about to over 500 years later, how could the gospel, how could the daily sacrifice have been the gospel to the Jewish people back then when the gospel hadn't even come about? Something to think about. Another thing, if this is to the Jewish people the gospel, how can that be when they reject the gospel of Jesus Christ? Remember, they don't accept Jesus as the Messiah, and don't even accept the New Testament as being part of their Bible. So if the Jewish people reject the gospel of Jesus Christ and the gospel message, I was just wondering, how could it be the gospel to the Jewish people? The whole fact is that I've been trying to point out these people have no idea what they're talking about. From one misinterpretation of Daniel 8:14, they totally misinterpret everything else. And guess, here's Dario saying, no, there is no daily sacrifice, and yet here's Doug Batchelor saying, yes, there is a daily sacrifice. Dario saying that the daily was paganism. Doug Batchelor saying the daily sacrifice, which isn't supposed to be there to start with, is the gospel message. Maybe they should exchange phone numbers and get their inventions right and explain this to the rest of the world. Now, you people out here in the third world countries, if you're foolish enough not to be asking questions about these things, you can see where you're going to be misled. I can't believe that people in third world countries who are now hearing these seminars, these revelation seminars, and this other scamming of Jesus seminars that these Seventh-day Adventists are holding, aren't asking questions about this. The reason you're probably not asking questions is they're not telling you. Walk up to one of the pastors and start talking to him about investigative judgment and the failed prophecies. Walk up to him and ask him why do they misinterpret Scripture so bad and get Daniel 8:14 right. Begin asking them questions. They'll probably run you out, but it's worth asking anyway. So the gospel is paganism now, huh? That right, Dario? Or maybe it was Doug Batchelor right, and there is a daily sacrifice. But then again, the gospel can't be the daily sacrifice, can it? Dang, y'all got me confused now. But I'll clear it up again. No sweat. Till next time, this has been Golly saying, God bless.